News 2's Riley Benson, who has covered the story of Alex Murdaugh and the entire Murdoch family since these crimes first started happening back at the beginning of the summer and then stayed with it as more things unfold. He's live for us today in Richland County.
That's right. We are going to go to him live as we wait to hear from Murdoch's defense attorneys. Riley, what can you tell us about this hearing? What was it like being inside that courtroom as that decision was being handed down?
Well, yeah, good morning, good afternoon now. It was a very packed courtroom this morning, a lot of media in the courtroom, obviously, as this decision was made to not grant bond for Alex Murdaugh and these charges related to the death settlement of Gloria Satterfield. A very just interesting feel in the courtroom, very quiet. There was not a lot of reaction to when that ruling came through. Obviously, we saw Dick Harpootlian, one of Murdoch's attorneys, asking for that decision to be reconsidered at some point. Obviously based on that psychiatric evaluation that's court ordered. But again, the reaction in the courtroom, very quiet. Again, a lot of media members. It was the first time we've seen Gloria Satterfield's family in person here, and they were at the bond hearing sitting right in front of me. They had no reaction, nothing to say, very quiet, sat there and listened to that bond hearing today as both sides presented their cases as to whether or not bond should be granted for Alex Murdaugh. Obviously, again, it wasn't. He was now ordered to have a court-mandated psychiatric evaluation following today's ruling, guys.
Riley, talk a little bit about the reactions you saw there in the courtroom, and we noticed that the attorneys representing Alex Murdaugh asking several questions, trying to get clarification from the judge about what exactly that psychiatric evaluation entailed, if it would lead to an adjusted bond, things like that. What was the reaction that you noticed there on the faces of the attorneys representing Alex Murdaugh? Did they seem surprised? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think there was some surprise to a degree. Now, before the hearing had started, there were some whispers going around the courtroom from other attorneys who were in attendance this morning that a bond right in the neighborhood of about $150,000 with some GPS tracking would be set. Obviously, that bond was denied. So I believe that Mr. Murdoch's attorneys, Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin, were a little caught off guard by that ruling. The judge taking that 15-minute recess, I think that was also something that caught most of the courtroom off guard. They were expecting that to happen, and obviously the judge took that 15-minute recess, Judge Clifton Newman. So I do believe there was some shock for Murdoch's attorneys, Jim Griffin, Dick Harpootlian. Again, like I mentioned beforehand, another attorney in the room had mentioned that there was some rumblings that about a bond of $150,000 was going to be set in this case. Obviously, that was denied due to Murdoch's financial ability to maybe flee, flight risk, also his mental state based upon his attempted suicide, his botched suicide effort back on September 4th, Labor Day weekend. So those things factoring into that decision for no bond. But I do believe there was a surprise factor for Mr. Murdoch's attorneys, Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin, this morning.
And Riley, this is actually not the first time that you have seen Murdoch in court. What can you tell us about his demeanor? Did he look more defeated than the last time you saw him in court? Of course, last time he got a personal recognizance bond. What can you tell us about his reaction and how he handled today?
You know, his reaction, the way he carried himself, very strange. He came into the courtroom first time, sat down for about a minute and a half, walked back out of the courtroom. The whole time he is patting his legs with his hands. He's not saying anything. He didn't even make eye contact with Mr. Bland, Mr. Richter, Mr. Harpootlian, who were presenting their cases just feet away from him. Obviously some accusations being thrown towards Mr. Murdoch involving some other investigations that are ongoing. Alex really just sat there quiet, didn't have much to say. At one point the judge did ask him if he had a comment. He stood about halfway and said, "No, Your Honor." So not a lot of reaction from Alex Murdaugh. Most of the time his head was either looking down or straight ahead at the judge. He did not make any eye contact, at least to my knowledge, with the Satterfield family sitting just feet behind him. Didn't say a whole lot, didn't have a lot of emotion, just really sat there, obviously heard the ruling, and then was taken out of the courtroom, both for the recess and then the ruling when it came down.
Riley, talking a little bit more about reactions, we talked about the state asking for that $200,000 bond to be set. Obviously, then that bond was denied, and we did hear a little bit from attorneys representing the Satterfield estate just saying this is a good day for justice. Did you see any reaction from those attorneys? Did they seem overjoyed with this response to have that bond denied? As far as it comes to representing the family, they are representing sort of getting justice served there and helping with their efforts to help them recoup all of their money.
Yeah, right. I don't know that overjoyed would be the right way to describe their reaction. Obviously, they think this is a win for their clients and a good first step towards bringing justice to those who are victims of Alex Murdaugh and different investigations that he's currently accused of. I would definitely say it was a win, according to Ronnie Richter. We had a chance to speak with him one-on-one following when we heard from them just at the podium minutes ago. They think this is a good first step towards finding justice, like I said, and this is a win for their clients. But they also think that there's more work to be done. They think that there are more charges that could be brought. Obviously, there's a third check in this death settlement that has not been charged to Alex Murdaugh at this point. So I think there are things to watch here, but overall, like I said, Ronnie Richter, the attorney for Satterfield's estate, saying that this is a win for his clients, but also, one of the first things mentioned by Eric Bland is this is a very sad day. And I think that's part of the emotion that we felt in the courtroom this morning. It's a sad day, but for the victims, the Satterfield estate, that this is a good first step towards recovering some of that money that was stolen. Now, another thing I do want to point out, you mentioned that the state asked for a $200,000 bond. The attorney, Ronnie Richter, for the Satterfield estate, he came up and asked for a $4.3 million bond for Alex Murdaugh to emulate or represent the money that is missing from the death settlement. Obviously, Alex Murdaugh is accused of diverting into his personal bank account. So I thought that was an interesting thing as well to point out regarding the bond hearing and the bond that was asked for by the state.
Well, Riley, thank you so much for being our eyes and ears there on the ground there. That courthouse in Columbia in Richland County. Again, that judge denying bond today for Alex Murdaugh on those charges. So we are going to go to break right now. We're coming back. We still have continued coverage, and we are still waiting for those reactions, Sophia, from those attorneys representing Alex Murdaugh.
Absolutely. They are probably regrouping after hearing what the judge handed down. So we are going to go to break, but as soon as those two attorneys take that podium, you can count on us to bring you that coverage live.